Hello, I am Brother Kelly Hughes, Chaplain of the Arts. We are broadcasting live to tape from the beautiful Valiant Theatre in the heart of Winnipeg's greasy Tenderloin. This is Kelly Hughes Live Slices, one guest, 1 hour every Saturday, 1 o'clock on UMFM and also on the YouTubes. Thank you so much for stopping by. And thank you to my guest for stopping by. It's Vincent Ho.
Yes, it is.
How you doing, Vince?
Fantastic. Great to be back in Winnipeg.
Vincent Ho, of course, the MP for Richmond Hill. And
Not that guy.
how do you feel about that? Like, you were like the Vince Ho, and then this guy comes along. Like, what?
Well, there's a lot of Vincos out there, trust me. I mean, it's just one of those coincidences.
So we blame your parents.
Yeah, blame my parents.
So you're not bitter about a conservative
absolutely.
MP. He hasn't done anything crazy yet.
I don't know. I haven't followed him. I don't know what his politics are. I know he's conservative MP, but yeah, that's the extent that I know about him. So there's also a very famous Vincent Ho, a horse jockey in Hong Kong,
Nice.
who apparently a lot of people confuse me with.
Yeah.
And then there's the Dr. Ho, the famous infomercial doctor that sells all those devices. So
Are they Vince too?
I don't know if they're Vince, but Dr. Ho, close enough.
Well, you're none of those people. You're a composer
Mm-hmm.
and a musician and a Stanley Kubrick fan.
I love Stanley Kubrick. Yeah.
And now you were the 2007 to 2014
Yeah, composer in residence.
composer in residence at the WSO,
Yeah.
and you've gone and done a bunch of other things. You're based in Calgary now,
Yeah, based in Calgary.
and you're here. So if you're listening to this live, today is Friday, March the Fifth?
6.
something.
Yeah.
And so you're doing something if you're listening to this when it comes out and not listening to it again at a later time, you're doing something with the WSO. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
They're performing a work of mine called Earthbeat. It's a piece I wrote in 2017, originally for the Calgary Philharmonic, and it was in celebration of Canada's 150. So yeah, and so the conductor, the guest conductor this week is Runa Bergman, and he was the music director of the Calgary Philharmonic where I used to work in. So that's we were colleagues and we worked together for a number of years, and he's been performing or programming my work whenever he can. So I mean, this is the second time he's programmed my work with a different orchestra. The other one was with his Wisconsin Peninsula Festival, and he programmed my percussion concerto, The Shaman, with Evelyn Glennie performing in celebration of my 50th, her 60th, and also his own 50th birthday.
Yeah,
So-
you've worked with Dame Evelyn Glennie a couple of times.
Yeah.
You've written for her.
Yep.
You've worked with all kinds of other people.
Mm-hmm.
Have you done your thing? Oops. Have you done your thing with Brad Fraser yet, or are you guys still working on it?
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. Brad Fraser, first of all, one of my greatest friends, a great inspiration, a wonderful playwright, and one of the wittiest and funniest guys I know. Now, originally, years ago, I think it was like, 12 years ago, we were in discussion of turning his play, Love and Human Remains, into an opera. Unfortunately, it was really hard to pitch that to various opera companies, and because every opera company was had their own ideas as to what they wanted to pursue.
Yeah.
And so that didn't get off the ground. Now, recently, I think it was about a year ago, he sent me another script, actually a script that was specifically created for purposes of musical theater. And he saw it as a possible rock opera. And it's called Gilgamesh. His own take on the story of Gilgamesh. And I read it, and it's so Brad Fraser. I mean, every page, my jaw dropped in shock. I laughed, I howled, I gasped. I'm like, my God, Brad, this is like a middle finger to the establishment.
Yeah.
I love it. And so I said to myself, okay, yeah, I have got to do this project. And I told, Brad, okay, yeah, I would love to do this. Let's discuss more possibilities and see if we can pictures of various people. And so right now, where things are at, we're talking to various organizations. We talked to the University of Calgary, the drama department, some local theaters in Calgary as well. But right now, I'm in the process of writing a couple of the songs or numbers for certain scenes and trying to find. Well, I do have a singer who's agreed to to do just a rough recording of them, something that we can work with and pitch to various theaters. So that's right now where we're at. I mean, I have some of the songs ready. It's just a matter of scheduling time with the singer to record them. So.
Speaking of great singers, Sarah Jo Kirsch says hi.
Oh, wonderful! Yeah, actually, yeah. While I'm in Calgary, I'm artistic director of this group called Lands End Ensemble, and we invited her to be co-curator and artist for one of our concerts next season. So it'll be great to work with her again. I remember wonderful times I've collaborated with her when I was here with her in Winnipeg, and since then, I moved to Calgary. She's now in Vancouver, and she's doing a lot of wonderful things. So.
This kind of makes me think of, we were sort of talking about this in the in the green room, about just kind of the state of sort of, I don't want to say classical music, but just the way that things are presented, the kind of infrastructure, and you're talking about this smaller group. That you've got. Do you think, and again, very excited to have you here. We're not throwing the WSO under the bus, but just generally speaking, do you think that classical music and the apparatus is kind of keeping up with culture and keeping up with the times? Because you're a pop culture guy, and I kind of the idea of, a lot of people have this idea of classical music, and classical music people being sort of stuffed shirts. Like, do you think, is it kind of moving along with the times, or is a lot of it kind of stuck in a time warp, or what?
Yeah, it's that's a loaded question. It's a lot to unpack there. Some orchestras are doing really well, mainly because they've maintained a lot of creative programming, artistic programming, and just very exciting projects that gets the community really interested. Yeah. And I think that's the success of a lot of our orchestras, is that they maintain a connection with the community. They have these initiatives that maintain the relationship with the community, like education outreach, or having orchestra readings of student works of the community, or commissions, actually, commissioning new works from local composers, as well as featuring their own musicians, like especially their principal musicians in concertos in the soloistic role. Now, unfortunately, there's also other orchestras that are going the opposite direction. That is, they're just relying on shows that are easy sells. So you have the pops and movie concerts, and there's becoming more and more of that, which I understand on a economic level, but totally rely on that is actually not does not create a healthy pathway for the orchestra industry. And the reason why is because you're relying on shows that are made for entertainment. You're bringing in shows that are, as one person put it, that are meant to be, that uses the orchestra almost as a backup band for these overpriced pop shows, where doesn't feature the orchestra in the best light. And these shows are meant that they fulfill a role. I love pop concerts as well. I love going to see a movie concerts, but they shouldn't be replacing the classical concerts, because the classical concerts is what still maintains, I guess, their cultural role as cultural leaders, the orchestra, to showcase their musicians at their best, because every orchestra, it's a collective of the best musicians of the city. So you want to showcase them in the best light, showcase them in works where they can sink their teeth into. In addition to that, while contributing to the growth of our local, regional, and national culture. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's program more Canadian artists. Let's program more Canadian composers. Let's create initiatives that will continue contributing to the education of music education in Canada. So things like that I feel the role of the orchestra still needs to maintain if they want to bring in a new generation of audience that appreciate the artistic art form. Keep in mind that with the orchestra as an entity, their role is to be a cultural leader of the music performing world. And you want to feature your orchestra in the best light to connect them with the audience. So in that sense, that's where creative programming becomes very, very important. It's very important to support the creative ideas of the music director, the collective programming committee. I mean, collectively, the musicians have so much to offer, so much information to offer, so much repertoire to offer that they think would be very exciting. And also being that they're part of the community, they would think of a program that they feel would be make an impact in the cultural community. And so these are things that are very important. Whereas with the pops and movie concerts, as much as I enjoy them, yeah, they're entertainment. Their content's usually Hollywood or American content, especially like if you have a Michael Jackson tribute show, disco show that's happening right now in Calgary, and of course there's the Star Wars, Harry Potter shows. Okay, that fulfills a particular role. Okay, that's entertainment, but what about the artistic? What about the cultural that builds our community, that builds our cultural identity in the classical musical world? And that's, I feel, is important that a lot of orchestras should be mindful of.
Do you remember Stephen Shipper, the
Oh yeah, he's a wonderful
artistic director of MTC? I had him on my live show many years ago, and it was the year that they had. It was the year I stopped going to MTC because I remember the first show was Grumpy Old Men the musical.
Oh gosh,
and
okay.
and they had a very kind of just their season was very kind of like that. And I remember talking to him about it, and I remember he said, "How unpopular does it have to be before it's art?" Is what he said to me, which was kind of
really thought of it
hilarious. But I mean, do you think that maybe by sort of maybe kind of pandering to people with the stuff that you're talking about, do you think that we're not giving people enough credit, for actually, wanting to go see the things that are a little bit more.
You mean the audience themselves?
The audience, yeah.
Well, I think it's just depends on the kind of audience you want to reach.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to reach to the general public, then yeah, for purposes of ticket sales or for selling out, then yeah, pops and movie concerts will do very well. But that's not what the orchestra musicians are, just trained to do. Yeah. And also, there's also a bigger. Okay, I'll answer your question in a moment. But you just reminded me of a bigger issue. If an orchestra continues doing movies and pops concerts, then the quality of their playing will be impacted. And what do I mean is that many of these concerts, these pop shows, they only get one rehearsal, and there's no telling us the quality of the arrangements. Yeah. I mean, it could be really good or it could be really poor. Yeah. But regardless of how bad or how good it may be, you still have like one rehearsal to put together, maybe two, and that's not really conducive for the musicians to really perform at their optimum. Whereas if you have them performing really like strong repertoire of the classical canon or like the works that by contemporary composers who have something to say, meaningful to say, and especially if they're commissions, then there's some more time given to the rehearsals. It gives the performers a chance to sink their teeth into the music and work together more in 2, 3, maybe even 4 rehearsals that allows them to continue to grow as artists. And without enough of that, and just relying on pops and movie shows, there's the risk that they're going to lose their ability to perform in a cohesive manner as a full orchestra. And that is something that to be mindful of, is the artistic integrity or artistic quality of that could be impacted by the long-term programming of these pop shows because of just the nature of how things are with these shows. Like 1 or 2 rehearsals, that's it. You don't know about the quality of the arrangements, and most times it doesn't really highlight the orchestra in the best light. They're more or less in the background. And that could be problematic as an artist. Now, for the audience, I think, first of all, each audience has their own preferences, all right? I mean, and for orchestras, they want to be able to tap into as many demographics as possible. So when it comes to programming or classical concerts, one way that helps to reach out to a certain demographic that are not familiar with classical music is to highlight a superstar soloist, a soloist that people may know about, like say Yo-Yo Ma. Now, mind you, he's really expensive.
Yeah.
And of course, there's also the possibility of programming works that will feature one of their own musicians as a soloist, so it has that local support, especially when a lot of the musicians in orchestras have other jobs like teaching or chamber music, and so they're already well integrated and have a strong role within their own community. And so featuring them in that light allows the audience to be able to appreciate the orchestra in a different light, while also appreciating the kind of talents that the city has. And I think that's something that orchestras should consider. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. Every orchestra is different. Every orchestra is facing different challenges, and so it can be very subjective. I guess my answer to your question is know who your audience is. What kind of audience are you trying to communicate to? If it's just a general broad audience, then yeah, movies and pop shows, will fill that role. If it's a classical audience, then this is where you need to consider, okay, how can you connect to that audience? Think about, well, what are some of the performers that are already like living in the city that maybe you can highlight, or who are some of the composers that are in the city that the community respects and knows about, and maybe you can commission or program one of their works. Also, it's important to have the orchestra maintain the connection with the community, maintain that education outreach element, maintain there's like the commissioning programs, also outdoor concerts in various areas beyond the concert hall, maybe going to school programs, performing in high schools, performing at various places that they don't normally are associated with. Just raising awareness that there is a strong orchestra in the city, strong collective of musicians that the audience, the general public, can have access to.
Yeah.
So
Sounds like a lot of work.
yeah, it is.
Well, and that's interesting what you say about the sort of the musical aspect and the practice aspect, and the how that works with having one rehearsal for something, because that's not really a thing that I had known or really thought about. So that's interesting to me.
Right.
We're sitting here. If you're watching this on video, we're sitting here surrounded by boxes, like we're in where they've got the Ark of the Covenant, we're in a space that's going to be the Valiant Theater. So one of the things that I've been looking into a lot and thinking about is kind of the 10,000-foot view of audience, capital A
Right.
audience, and especially sort of post COVID. And one of the reasons why this is full of stuff is because one of the things that I do, the main thing I do for money is I do estates, and I move people, and I move things, and whatever, and I move pianos. So I've moved about 300 pianos in the last number of years, and it's interesting to me because every home used to have a piano, right? And people, and somebody in the house would play it. And now, the reason that I move pianos often it's not people taking their piano with them. It's often like people are selling the house and the piano's got to go. People are having the floors redone, or people, just want the piano out.
Yeah.
So very often the piano is going from, one person's place to another person's place. And honestly, probably about 80% of the time, the piano is going to an Asian family with young kids.
Right. Okay.
Because they're still teaching their kids to play piano, an instrument, right? That's still important.
Right.
And I'm just saying, back in the day, everybody would, you'd have a piano and everybody'd sit around the piano. My mom played. You'd sit around at, Christmas or whenever. All the, you open up the seat, there's all the old music. And I just feel like people have a different relationship with music. And I feel like, and I do agree with everything you said, and I agree that we really need to make sure that we get the young people interested, and because I'm a theater guy, and I remember, the first play I saw when I was, 8 or however old I was, it was. I don't think it was called the Potato People, but in my mind, it's called the Potato People.
Right.
You know, I mean, I think that's like important. Do you remember the first time you heard classical music, where you were at an actual?
Yeah, actually, yeah. The first orchestra
Auditorium with-
concert wasn't a believe it or not, it was a pops concert actually with an orchestra. It was Calgary Philharmonic with Mo Kaufman, the jazz flautist.
Yeah.
And I just got a ticket when I was in high school, and I thought I'd go, and I had a wonderful time. And then the second time I heard an orchestra piece was an actual classical concert, but it was a high school field trip where we got to go see the Calgary Philharmonic, and they presented some wonderful performances of classical works and also some modern works. And so that gave me an introduction. And the comparison was night and day. Absolutely night and day. I mean, when I went to the Pops concert, it was just Mo Kaufman, and you have the orchestra as the backup band. Okay, had enjoyed it. Mo Kaufman, wonderful. Then when I went to this classical concert, the field trip, it was a totally different experience. I got to hear the orchestra doing what they do best, and it was remarkable. Just hearing them sound so beautiful, so expressive. They were really gelling right and performing music that had real meat. It was transformative, I thought.
And you were already a musician at that
Well,
point?
no, I was in high school. I was I was playing a trombone in the concert band, and I was waffling as to whether to pursue music or not at that time. But that was, I'd say,
So you were a little bit of a late bloomer. You
Oh,
weren't you weren't a Linus. You weren't 5 years old with your
no.
grand piano.
No, it was something that I guess you could say I fell into later on. I mean, I always loved music. I played the piano. I grew up playing the piano, and I played the trombone, and I also picked up guitar, violin, and cello. Being a composer was something that just happened. I'd say when I was 14, I rented a movie called Amadeus, and some of you may know
Love
about
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a story about Mozart and the rivalry between Salieri and Mozart.
Yeah.
And I was so inspired that after watching the movie, I ran to the piano and wrote my first piano piece, and that's what stuck.
It was kind of interesting because, do you remember the video for like, there was a video, so I'm 5 years older than you. So the movie came out, I think, in 82.
Yeah, something
And
like
that was around when like videos kind of started to be a real thing.
Oh yeah, VHS
And
data. Yeah.
and but I mean music videos.
Oh, music videos.
Music videos, right? So there was Good Rockin' Tonight. There was, whatever the things were. And and I remember, I guess it was maybe the 25th or symphony or whatever. I can't remember which piece it was, but they did a video.
Right.
The one that goes
Oh, that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I remember now. Yeah.
So they did a video that was like on, airing, alongside Michael Jackson and whatever else. And it was kind of bookended by David Lee Roth pretending to be a conductor.
Okay.
And then it was a bunch of kind of wild scenes from the movie, and kind of the every once in a while there'd be a the laugh from the Tom Hulce's laugh. And I remember that because I remember like it kind of met the moment, right? And it was like, it was just the straight up, Mozart, 300-year-old, bit of music or whatever, but it was really like in a format that, when I was 12 or whatever, where I just thought, wow, this is really cool.
Right.
Because it was sort of kind of packaging it like that.
Right.
And had David Lee Roth, who I loved because he could kick in the air. Like you remember the
Yeah, I
David
remember
Lee Roth
Of
kick?
course, yeah, Van Halen.
So I mean, I think that was a great thing, and that was kind of and that movie was interesting because sometimes you'll see period movies where they use modern music,
Yeah.
but this was just every bit of music in Amadeus was period.
Yeah.
And it was and it's not all Mozart. I mean, there was some different stuff in there, some folk music and some different things, but it was all period music, and it was such a great showcase. It was a great story,
Okay.
because the genius who's blessed by God, who is who's kind of selfish, rotten person, and then the poor put upon, Salieri. It was a great story, but I mean, it was the music was so great,
Right.
and I think that was kind of a, maybe call that kind of a crossover thing.
Yeah, that's a bit of and that's one way of introducing classical music to the audience, is using like a cross of pop culture and classical in some way that people can relate to, especially if it's like celebrity people of pop culture. But what I'm talking about is it goes a little bit more beyond that. And what do I mean by that? It's about contributing to the growth of our national identity in classical form. It's contributing to the growth of our national culture, because there's just so many great talents in our country, in each country for that matter. Every country has wonderful talents. And if you invest into the arts, if you invest into something like the orchestra or the classical music, you're contributing to the growth and the formulation or the continual formulation of our national identity in musical form. And what do I mean by that? I mean, if you think of every civilization, every nation, okay, let it be, I don't know, like Japan, England, Brazil, all right. When you think of these nations or countries, you don't think about, say, I don't know, like the price of grain on any given year, or the number of shillings, or the price of shillings on any given year, or anything. You think about their culture, you think about their food, you think about their language, you think about their stories, you think about their music. So for example, when you think England, okay, I don't think about the amount of rainfall each year on any given day, or you think about like the
Spice Girls,
or you think about that's what I'm talking about. You think about James Bond, you think about Harry Potter, you think about Shakespeare. You think, you think about the Beatles and the Spice Girls. You think about the culture that defined who they are. It's an extension of who they are in cultural form, and and that goes with every country. And so in Canada, you think when someone talks about Canada, you think about not just the weather, but you also think about Margaret Atwood. You think about Michael Ondaatje. You think about Leonard Cohen. You think about Celine Dion. You think about the arts, the cultural arts. And in the classical, you've got James Ennis, you got Jan Lestievsky. In terms of composers, you got Alexander Louis, you got Alan Bell, you got so many. And these are the people that are defining who we are as a nation in cultural form. And so in the context of an orchestra, I feel that that's what should, especially when orchestras and many arts organizations are getting federal funding with a mandate that they're contributing to the culture, to our nation's culture, there should be some like a level of priority of investing into our artists and into our composers, and that just comes from just good programming. I mean, this is, well, I don't know if the ironic is a word, but just several months ago, every city was all elbows up, supporting Canada. We need to support Canada, made in Canada, support Canadian content, and that's what a lot of orchestras were doing too. They were saying elbows up, we got to support Canadian content. Well, several months later, here I am seeing a lot of orchestras programming as if they're the 51st state of the United States. They're still not putting their money where their mouth is. They're still trying to just pitch programs that they know are easy sells because it taps into the lowest common denominator, and they're very entertaining, but it doesn't contribute to culture. And if that's the case, if that's the direction they want to go, then embrace it. Just say you're a pops orchestra then.
You're a guy who's on the internet all the time. Do you feel like the lowest common denominator is getting even lower?
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, one thing that really kind of concerns me, which I'm sure it concerns you and concerns lots of people, or should, is AI. And sort of I mean, there's a bunch of different aspects to that, but like, I'm the kind of guy, I look at my phone and I look at the things that it shows me, and like, if it's showing me little videos or whatever, like lately, half of what it's showing me is AI slop. I'm watching something and I go, oh, it's not real. Yeah. And it's I find it kind of maddening. And from an artistic perspective, and I'll ask you about music in a second, because I mostly know about writing and about visual art.
Right.
The way that these models have been trained is by scraping scraping the internet
Right.
for everybody else's writing and everybody else's visual art.
Right.
And then people are using AI images, and I'm just like, don't do that, because you're ripping somebody off.
Well, yeah, and
none of those people got paid.
Oh yeah, I know, and I have a problem with that. I mean, I think all artists have a problem with that. I mean, it's one thing to use AI as a starting point and maybe to facilitate the process, but to rely on it to completely, for the entire creative product, that's what I have a problem with. I mean, I know a lot of professionals of various fields who use AI on some level, but as a starting point. For example, like say if a teacher wants to create the curriculum for the year of math, and so to expedite things, there are certain topics that she needs or they need to sure to include to start as a starting point, and then once that is kind of laid out or some template, then they can modify it to fit their own schedule or their own criteria. And so that's one way that AI could be helpful, but entirely rely on AI to create everything for you, especially music and art, that I have a problem with. And not only that, that only reinforces my belief that we should commit and invest more on artists, because AI relies on what already is pre-existing.
Right, yeah.
They take what's already pre-existing.
Yeah, it hasn't created anything.
It hasn't created anything. It just takes what's already there
and adds a finger.
Yeah, exactly. And so if we are continually to have creations that reflect who we are in artistic form, then we need the artists. We need that innovation that the artists can bring.
Yeah. So, well, because otherwise, if it's just AI doing all this, we've got entropy. Yeah. I mean, there's no new creation. There's just remix.
And that's it. It becomes a cycle of sequels of all these works, rather than actually moving forward and creating. And this is where I stand with the arts. The art, let's just say for purposes of our discussion, the symphonic world, every creation, depending on the kind of work is being created or has been written, is in many ways a historical documentation of who we are in symphonic form. So for example, the Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, all right, it not only is a great work, but it's a historical documentation for us to understand the kind of world that Beethoven was living in. It was during the Napoleonic times. It was the time when it was down with the aristocracy and come rise the middle class, the entrepreneur. It became where people can become the architect of their own futures. And that piece, the Symphony Number 9, represents that spirit of the time, where it's like freedom for all, freedom from the tyranny of the aristocracy, so now we can have a voice. So that is historical documentation of Germany at that time. And so this is why it's important for artists to continually be supported, because they are creating reflections of who we are in symphonic form, or whichever artistic discipline they're in. It's a reflection of who we are that continually changes with each generation, and every generation has something to say. Either in response to what's happening in their timeline, or in response to what happened in the previous generation that we need to learn from. And if we don't have that progression, if we shut the voices of artists, then we lose the ability to see our civilizations grow as a culture, because if we rely on AI, it becomes just recycled music that had already pre-existed, and just continuing that's a cycle of there's a word for it, not nostalgia, but more it's like chic, I guess, or kitsch. And some people find that they enjoy that. Okay. And it's reassuring to hear something that's familiar to you. All right, but the arts isn't meant to be just reassuring. The arts is meant to be a reflection of where we are. And it's not meant to, I shouldn't say be comfortable, but rather to bring, raise awareness of certain truths that we need to hear. truths of who we are. As one person puts it, okay, entertainment is meant to be reassuring, where you consume because you just want to feel good. It's like, you take it in, you already know what you're getting, when you consume it, and there's a certain reassuring factor because you know what you're getting. Whereas the arts is meant to be transformative. It's meant to change your life. It's meant to show, highlight perspectives that shapes your perspective of who we are as a society, and maybe change how you see, the world around you. I feel that way. Like, say, let's take cinema. I mean, there's a lot of movies that are entertaining, but then there's few directors that I feel are real artists that change how I see the world. The most recent, I'd say, is Martin Scorsese's the movie The Flower Moon.
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Killers of the Flower Moon. All right, and so first of all, it's a 3-hour epic, maybe more, but. And I wouldn't say it's his best film, but it was definitely a fantastic, Martin Scorsese film. And I left the theater with a different perspective. It really changed how I saw the world around me after watching that. That, for me, is transformative. That's when I know that I experienced something that changed my, my life in some way, enriched my view of the world around me, and it's from an artist that had something to say, or had something that they needed to share to raise awareness of this alternative perspective. And this movie, was centered around one Indigenous woman and seeing it from her perspective of what was going on around her. And this was something that I felt, wow, this really transformed how I see the world around me. And that, for me, is wonderful. Then there are other films that I love to go see just for entertainment. I mean, for example, like the Marvel Comics universe. That's entertainment. I go in knowing what I'm going to get. I know what these stories about, but it's more for escapist fun. Actually, here's a great way of me putting it. For me, when I go to a concert, it's like a ritual. You walk in, you sit down in the auditorium, and you're sitting with a collective of people who chose to go there, to go to this one space. The doors close, the lights come down, the lights go up on stage, the musicians come on stage. And in that, I don't know, like 1.5 to 2 hour period, we're all taken away from the realities of the earthly rules, the realities of the world that lie outside the walls. And during that period, I feel that I am putting part of a ritual where the musicians are expressing themselves, taking me away to some other wonderful world that will expose me to experiences that can be transformative. And when they're done, the lights go back up, the doors open, we leave the concert hall and return to society. But if the concert left a significant impact, then I will be feeling that impact long after I've left the concert hall.
This makes me think of something that the sort of I don't know how I should describe Steve Kirby, but the discredited. Do you remember Steve Kirby?
Yeah, I remember. Yes,
who had some problems here at U of M. But years ago he said to me, I asked him about having conflict with other musicians, and then what happens when you get up there. And he said, well, when you get up there, he said you leave all that stuff off, because he said the bandstand is the sacred altar. Is what he said. And so we're sitting here in this old church right now, you and me, and one of the reasons why I really want to turn this space into a place for art is because it was once a place where everybody was pointing up there and they were looking at the priest rather, or they were looking at God or whatever. And I feel like we've got a big red carpet that goes from the front door right up to the stage, and that is the sacred altar of art. Everything pointing that way, everything looking that way. My shirt here, which you can see if you're watching on the internet, is Art Will Save Us All, and that's our theme for this place. This shirt, we commissioned these from a couple of artists.
And this is what I'm talking about. Yeah, you commission. I take it they were local artists.
Yeah.
Well, see, this is what I'm talking about. This is why it's important. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
To commission local artists, feature local artists, because they're building local culture. When I think Winnipeg, Winnipeg has its own personality,
Yeah.
and it's built on these artists' work.
And the slogan is "Art will save us all," because I came to the point where I realized that politics, religion, billionaires, none of those things were going to ultimately be what saved us. And I think art will save us all, because I feel like art is the thing that is, and this is sort of what you're saying, is that art really is the thing that is going to save us from ourselves, and it is the thing that we need to feed, and we need to help it grow, and we need
absolutely. And it's not just a need; it's a necessity for our survival as a collective culture. And what do I mean by that? If you look at every culture, civilization around the world, even those who have had no contact with one another, they still had the arts. They had music. They all had music. They all had storytelling. They all had visual arts, and so, they all had their own culinary traditions. And so these are what defined their identity. And this is why I feel it's important to support artists and musicians, actually arts of all disciplines within the local level. Start there. If you want to really reach out to the local public, support the local artists, local composers, local musicians, build their local identity, while also supporting the cultural identity on a broader scale.
And I love the story. I love that you and Brad are working on this thing.
Yeah.
Because one of the things that I've always, I write a bit, I sing a bit, I've done, some acting, but really the thing that I like the most is to facilitate what other people are doing, to create a space where these, like you say, where this kind of this community experience, this sort of ritual where that can happen. And one of the things I really like within that context is introducing people from different disciplines, or introducing people who don't necessarily.
Yeah, and I think that's an important thing. What you're talking about, integrative arts, where it's like the cross integration of arts, where and I think that's important. I mean, I think it would be great. One idea I had, believe it or not, when I was working with the Calgary Philharmonic, was to, if we're going to program the Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, great, but why don't we incorporate dance, but not just any dance? Why don't we incorporate choreography that's inspired by hip hop or crunk dancing, to have them interpret it in some way? And I thought, hey, now that is reflective of where we're living right now, taking like iconic work, classical work, but then giving it a modern perspective through dance.
Well, and that makes me think of Romeo and Juliet with whose version was that?
Baz Luhrmann?
Yeah, with
Leonardo.
Leo and and so they took the language and they left the language the same, and they changed the way that it looked to give it a modern or a certain kind of context.
And I love that. In fact, what they did was they took something that was already pre-existing, but they gave it a reinterpretation. So that way it highlights a different generational perspective, to highlight who we are now while still connecting us with the past, but just showing a different perspective of it.
A friend of mine, Greg Kamichuk, who's an artist and a filmmaker and a graphic novelist and whatever, he did something a couple of years ago where he it was one of those things where they show a movie and the musicians write music for it, and it's silent movies.
Okay.
But what he did was he actually took 3 silent movies. He took Nosferatu, Bride of Frankenstein, and I'm blanking on the other one. And he re-edited them to 30 minutes each.
Okay.
Which I thought was interesting.
All right.
Because you don't really see that, like somebody taking a sort of a famous movie and just cutting it down. But he felt like these are movies that I'm guessing this is what he thought. Like these are movies that maybe you're not going to sit there and watch the whole, Metropolis was the other one.
Metropolis, yeah.
So, maybe somebody's not going to sit there and watch 2 hours of this silent movie, but I'm going to cut these down and make this kind of a, what I think is sort of a coherent 30-minute movie.
All right.
Which was very interesting because I'd seen bits and pieces of those, but I'd never sat through all those movies.
And which is fine.
Yeah.
I mean, like if that's if his artistic discipline is editing, and he has a particular way to present this combination of film in his own way, that'd be very interesting. I mean, that's very creative. As long as he gets over like the copyright issues, but I don't think there is any copyright.
They must be in the public domain.
Yeah. So yeah, probably by now. And so if it's in the public domain, yeah, I see no problems with that. I mean, in the world of composing, a lot of works that are in public domain has been used as quotations. Yeah. That's incorporated in many works. Even I, quote a lot of pieces of other people's work that's in public domain, like Beethoven or Bach, and Ravel and things, and Chopin, just as quotations. I mean, I wouldn't like cut up their pieces or anything. And even if I do it, I have to do it carefully to ensure that it's like there's a artistic intent behind it.
Yeah.
But it sounds like what this guy is doing, he had a vision as to how he wanted to present like all three films in a certain way, and that was his art form.
We're kind of running down on time, and I wanted to ask you about a couple more things. I wanted to ask you about your Zodiac
Chinese Zodiac
opus thing. How many parts are there?
Well, I just had book 3 premiered in New York. Okay, how that start was in 2020. It was COVID pandemic, so I had time on my hands. Yeah. And my daughter was 8 years old at the time. She was playing from the Royal Conservatory Level 4. And I noticed that in the syllabus, in the piano selections, they didn't have any works, or very few works, that dealt with Asian themes, and even less so that dealt with Chinese cultural themes. And so just for fun, I decided to write a little piece inspired by my daughter's zodiac sign, the dragon. And it was the little dragon. And I wrote it within her level, about level 4, level 5. And I had so much fun with that I decided to write pieces that are caricatures of each of the other zodiac animals, but depicting them in their young forms. So that way they can be relatable to students of that level, and also writing in a way that would contribute to their music education and their piano education. So I incorporated many techniques that I learned from writing for traditional Chinese instruments, and try to recreate them in pianistic form while still capturing the spirit of the animals. That was like my biggest bestseller. Okay, the second it was released, it was like I sold like 1,000 copies during the first few months. Royal Conservatory selected 10 movements to include in their new syllabus and piano series. And so I thought, well, okay, maybe I should write a book 2 that depicts the animals in their teenage years. And so that's what I did. I wrote book 2, and it's in the form of preludes and fugues. I always wanted to write my own collection of preludes, fugues, and I took the same themes from book 1 when the animals were in their young ages, and rewrote them to fit the level of a higher level pianist. So like we're talking about level 8 to ARCT, which is the final diploma level, and highlighting how these animals have grown up. And so that went really well. It was just recorded in an album by Tony Yike Yang, and it was just recently published several months ago. And so that's doing really well. And so I thought, you know what, why not continue the series and write a book 3 where it depicts the animals in their adult years, and write them in the form of concert etudes, virtuoso concert etudes. And so I approached one of the faculty members of Manhattan School of Music, told her this is what I'm doing. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, book 2 was premiered by students by the University of Calgary. It was a collaborative project. 12 of them were assigned a movement, and I got to work with them, and it was important for me to work with them of that demographic, because I wanted to get their input as to ensure that the pieces were relatable to that demographic, and also pianistic for that demographic. And so for book 3, I wanted to follow that same model. And so she was very excited. Her name's Dr. Lisa Yui, and Manhattan School of Music. So she brought together 12 students. So, I mean, we're talking like the best of the best. We're graduate level student pianists at the Manhattan School of Music in New York from all over the world. In fact, I won't even call them students. They're already, some of them are already have careers or are cultural ambassadors of their own country. And these are from Spain, United States, Korea, Japan, Canada, China. They were from all over the world, and they were remarkable. And so they premiered book 3, first 6 in October, and then the last 6 this past February. And now we're in the process of finalizing the details for publication. Now, in the long run, I do hope to write a book 4 that depicts the animals.
In the seniors' home.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. In their senior years. And I want to depict, written in the form of postludes, so shorter pieces, but capturing them in their senior years. I'm not going to start writing that until I'm well into my 60s or 70s, okay? Because I want to be sure I'm in the right mindset to write those books. Now, as a joke, my daughter said that maybe you should write a book 5, because what happens to these animals after they pass on? Well, in China, they're turned into culinary dishes. And so maybe write a book 5 where it's inspired by all these Chinese dishes. So like for the pig, sweet and sour pork, or for the lamb, like lamb hot pot, something like that.
Or just write a cookbook.
Or no, and I thought it was a funny idea. I didn't want to go there because I felt that was a little too morbid, especially when you have students who start with book 1 and continue on with all 4 books, so they grow older with these animals, and then to finish off with a book with as culinary dishes. That was a little morbid. But instead, okay, just to wrap up quickly, is that I did recently decide to write another set of piano pieces, short piano pieces, a little suite, 6 pieces, inspired by dim sum. So that was the compromise. So I'll be writing a new set of piano pieces inspired by certain dishes of dim sum, like shumai or like chicken feet, things like that. So.
Chicken feet, my least favorite kind of feet.
Yeah, but it's so unique.
Just a couple more minutes left, but you're here for a reason in Winnipeg. We should ostensibly talk about it. You're doing WSO is doing your piece Earthbeat.
Yeah, Earthbeat, and they sound fabulous. I mean, I just had the rehearsal this morning, and they were wonderful. It's great to hear. First of all, it's great to be back. It's great to be working with the orchestra again, and also just hearing them in rehearsal just brought back so many wonderful memories. And they sound absolutely amazing. So it's great to hear them again. Great to work with them again, and I'm so honored to be on this program. And it's a fantastic program. Runa created a Nordic program. Well, I'm the only non-Nordic. But he wanted to program it because he and I have strong professional relationship, and he felt very strongly about my piece. And that's one thing that I love about Runa and conductors like him, is that he loves working with composers. He loves working with composers of all backgrounds and disciplines, and he wants to program as many of them that he feels strongly about. And that really means a lot, because when he programs a work, or whenever someone like him programs a work, and this is, I don't want to go into too much detail on this topic because it's still a little controversial. I feel that I'm not being tokenized. And what do I mean by that? I feel like I'm not being one of those obligatory checkbox, marginalized composer that we need to program just for purposes of optics to create the superficial optics of diversity. And I have a problem with tokenism, where I see that happen a lot, where a lot of places, they don't even listen to the music. They program the pieces purely based on the composer's biological features, and just to fulfill a criteria of how it will look in the programming. And I mean, I've had that happen to me before, whereas orchestra would program a work of mine, but they've never heard the piece. They just felt, oh, Asian composer, let's program it. So, and that leaves me a little bit uncomfortable. So, but with Runa, I know I've worked with him. He always listens to the music before he programs it. He listens to a broad, diverse collective of pieces. He's championed so many Canadian composers while he was at the Calgary Philharmonic, and I know that he makes a conscientious effort to try to find pieces that he feels strongly about from that diverse collective, that he feels audiences need to hear. And so when a conductor like that like, with that level of artistic sincerity, artistic integrity, says, well, I want to program your piece, I know it's not because of any checkboxing or tokenism or agenda. It's because he truly loves my music, and that's why I'm very happy to be here to be working with him. To and the rehearsal was fabulous. He really, got to know the piece, asked all the right questions, and he really is putting the effort to try and make it come to life. And that's something I really respect.
So you're anti-woke. You want...
I'm not anti-woke. I'm just
being facetious. I know what you're saying.
I know. I mean, here's a really brutal, this is how far it's gone. I'm not going to mention names or anything. But for example, when I, recommended a composer for programming at one time, and I listened, and I was discussing it with other, musicians of a diverse collective, and we were all of all various cultural backgrounds, men and women, and we agreed on a particular composer that we felt was the right fit. It just so happened that it was a white male composer, but we felt strongly this is the right fit, and we listened to all these other ones. This is the right fit, but yeah, I was told no. We don't want that piece. We've decided to go with this other piece by a marginalized composer. And it was obvious that they only did it out of checkboxing for checkboxing reasons. And without even realizing it, they already committed an act of racism because they silenced my opinion. They silenced our collective diverse voices of what we wanted. It just happened that what we chose didn't fit their agenda, so they vetoed it. And that's what I have a problem with. I mean, so when you say, well, look, I'm all for awareness. I know you're joking, but if you're doing it just for performativeness, just to create the superficial optics of diversity, that's still a problem. It's about the process.
And it is disrespectful if you're not even going to listen to the music.
Absolutely. And
I mean, why would you do that? That's
exactly.
crazy.
But I've seen that happen, believe it or not, and it's really unfortunate. And this is where if any organization is adamant about promoting DEI, then they should do so in process, not just in optics. They should have a collective people of diverse voices having a say in the decision. So if it's a diverse collective, and say the theme one year is going to be, I don't know, German modernism, then naturally it could potentially lead to the fact that it's going to be primarily white composers because of that theme. Or say, Chinese or celebrating Chinese culture, then it's going to, naturally lead to selections or choices that are going to be of an Asian background. But that's still better. Like, for example, the German example, that's still better because those decisions are coming from a diverse collective of voices. They were empowered to make that decision, and if they say they want these composers program, then you should respect their decision, and that is where diversity could work on in terms of process. We're not just having someone decide, okay, we need this composer, let's put it in. There we have the superficial optics of diversity. That is not diversity, that's tokenism. And I have a problem with that.
I think that we could sit here for another hour and talk,
Yeah.
but our hour is pretty much up. Thank you so much for stopping by. Will you come back in 10 years when you're back?
Sure. If they invite me, I'll be back. I'd love to be back.
I do appreciate it. This has been Kelly Hughes Live Slices. Thanks so much for tuning in on the radio or on the internet or wherever. My guest has been composer Vincent Ho. Not that Vince Ho, a different one. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Right.
And thank you for stopping by. Here, let's say this together. Art will save us all.
Yeah.
Thank you.